Hi, my name's Phil. I like to crack politics, and Michael Gove yesterday made me look a right numpty when he said there would be no compulsion for people to wear face masks in shops. Fair enough, I make him look like a bit of a knob most days of the week. Give him that one back. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, arguably it could be Boris Johnson or it could be the right-wing papers. Take your pick as to where we've gone here. So I'm going to have to apologise. Yesterday I did a video talking as if the government had said that face masks in shops and potentially other indoor settings would be compulsory. Now, when I was drafting out what I wanted to say, that was actually written from the point of view of they're considering it, because that on Friday was what I thought the situation was. And then as it went on, various papers, the right-wing papers, the ones very, very close to the Conservatives, were all talking, no, this has happened now. And I was reading it and I'm thinking, I can't see the usual sort of stuff that makes you think maybe it's not definitive, like, unattributed sources, unnamed officials, that sort of thing. So I thought, they've actually decided. Okay, went with that. No. So Michael Gove did an interview yesterday where he said, no, we're not going to be doing that. They never viewed face masks as a way to deal with the virus anyway. So I suppose I don't know why I should be surprised, other than I was happy enough to go along with these reports saying that it was going to be compulsory. Now, that doesn't mean to say it won't be made compulsory at some point, because what Michael Gove was saying is that people should wear them in line with what Boris Johnson said. Because the way this came about is last week Boris Johnson was wearing a face mask the first time ever. In fact, wonders never cease. We've now seen Donald Trump wearing one. I bet that was a sight to behold when he took it off, covered in orange dust. But anyway, so Boris Johnson went out to a shop with a face mask on. And he said that we should be stricter about, making sure people are wearing these in an indoor setting where they're going to be with people they don't normally meet. And anyway, Michael Gove said, yes, of course, people should wear them. It's just basic good manners. Even though he wasn't wearing one for his interview, and neither were the interviewers, I have to say I've been disappointed with politicians and others across the spectrum for this same lack of face coverage. It's not a specifically Tory issue. You're getting this not everywhere, but in a number of parties, and I'm not happy about that. But cast your minds back to before the lockdown. Do you remember when Boris Johnson said that people shouldn't go out, but that he wasn't going to force restrictions on them, but you shouldn't really, because it's not good. Then they ignored him, and so we went into the enforced lockdown. So I wouldn't rule out something similar here at some point. I wouldn't say with as quick a turnaround as that. They may try harder. It looks like they may be trying harder to encourage the use of face masks. Michael Gove again saying he trusts the common sense of the British public. God. But they may relent and make them compulsory if that doesn't work. And of course it won't work. It has a zero chance of working. But for me, again, it was just further evidence of this belief that seems to exist on the far right for this achievement of the herd immunity. And I saw a right-wing commentator, who I won't bother to name, you will either know them or you won't, but it's really about the message, saying that we're nearly at the point where we've reached herd immunity. It says they were trying to argue that the lockdown actually has just made things worse. We would have been there now, but the lockdown has actually just prevented this. We're nearly at herd immunity now. We would have already been there if it weren't for the lockdown. That just made a mess of things. Now let us be clear about this. As people have pointed out, so antibody tests, testing the population to try and find out what proportion of the population have the antibodies, which you may imagine can give you immunity from this. And Spain, of course, is a country that instigated a full, albeit a little late in the day, lockdown. Not as late in the day as us, but still, they were slower to react than maybe they could have been. But they still implemented a full-on lockdown, much tighter than happened in any part of the UK. And they see about 5% of the population having antibodies. Then you look across at Sweden. Now, Sweden, very much the opposite. They had no lockdown. And they're getting a lot of stick for this because of the damage that they have done with this policy, which is now plain for all to see. There, they saw 7.3% of the population with antibodies. Yes, it's more. But to put this into context, the best case scenario models the need for 60% to have antibodies before herd immunity can be said to be achieved. Now, it has to be pointed out, we do not know what proportion of the population needs this for us to be able to say herd immunity anyway. And also, let's say it was 60% of the population. If you've got like 90% of the population in some parts of the country and 20% in others, then that's still not going to be herd immunity. So a certain distribution will be included in that as well. But it's all based on modelling, and modelling is based on assumptions. We do not know enough to be able to say with any confidence what would need to be achieved. But best case scenario, the most optimistic appraisal is 60%. In fact, this was the figure being bandied about by our chief scientific advisor, who is a eugenicist, and he was the one who was trying to bang this herd immunity drum right at the start. And he'd suggested 60%. But even since then, with more refined models, no one is getting a lower figure than 60% required. It could be more. So Sweden has 7.3%, or at the point at which this data was taken. Maybe more now. You would expect it to be a bit more now. And it has one of the very worst death rates in the world. One of the very worst. Now, if the difference between being delayed, or albeit delayed, but a tight lockdown and no lockdown at all is an extra 2.3%, from 5% to 7.3%, imagine how many more deaths you are going to need to absorb to get to 60%. One word: carnage. And if you're wondering what it is in the UK, it's all very well going about Spain and Sweden. What is it in the UK? So the Office for National Statistics, the latest data I can find, which is not right up to date, will never be right up to date, particularly with the government hiding the data, put it as 6.8%. Now, even if this figure is now higher, which I would expect it to be, that's a reasonable expectation, it's absolutely a long way from even the most optimistic herd immunity requirement. The idea that we are nearly at herd immunity now is a complete fabrication. It's not just wrong, it's a fabrication, it's a deliberate lie. And again, especially when you look at Sweden, no lockdown at all. No lockdown at all. And we know this anyway. I say we know this, the scientific community knows this. You do not get herd immunity safely without an absolute devastation of the population without a vaccine. A vaccine is the only way to get that without ridiculous numbers of graves needed. And, for all those, just as a little side thing as well, for all those in Sweden, because when I talked about Sweden before, and they've gone, oh, no, it's actually a sensible policy, you don't quite understand, let me explain it to you. It's like, got one of the highest death rates in the world. It's a bastard of a policy that has now been disowned even by Sweden's scientific advisors. And, at the time, because at the time, I would say it was funny, but it's actually quite tragic. I was trying to say, because we knew for a while it hadn't even provided the economic boost, because this was always the argument raging, particularly in the UK. To what extent do you do this balance between the economy and health? Whereas in reality, it's not a balance. The way, and this is what scientists are saying, the way, and economists are saying, the way you preserve the long-term health of the economy is to get COVID down to zero. It's not one or the other, some balancing act. But Sweden didn't even help their economy out with this measure. The benefit economically was minimal. And people were trying to say, oh, but it's not about the economy. We didn't do it to try and save the economy. So why did you do it? To try and kill people? The actual policy. And I will accept, I do understand that people in Sweden trust their government more. They'll listen and behave responsibly. Under the same circumstances, people in Sweden will behave more responsibly than people in Britain. I get that. Not arguing against that. I'm talking about in isolation. The actual policy in Sweden was a death trap. That's all there is to it. And you know, and again, like, no economic benefits. And this is why commentators in the US and the UK are looking at Sweden again. And they're looking at Sweden, and then they're looking at their own governments that think they're doing their economy some good. Then they look back at Sweden, and then they look back at their own country and go, no. But there it is anyway. Those are my thoughts. We're not going to have compulsory face masks. Sorry about that. Hope you found the video interesting anyway. If you did, don't forget to click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further. Please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.